This video is a part of a 5-part mini-series that I've chosen to do on Creative Tribe Talks, and each episode of this series is going to be 8 minutes and 46 seconds long out of honor for George Floyd. Welcome to Creative Tribe Talks. So by now, I hope you guys would have seen part 1 of this 5-part mini-series, just tackling some of the social issues that exist. And this time, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the whole George Floyd space and what my thoughts are regarding that, and kind of invite you guys into that discussion. So, I'm sure by now, more likely than not, you would have heard that this black American guy, African American guy, was killed by white cops. And it has sparked a whole lot of discussion, a whole lot of protests, both in the Christian community and out. And so there are a couple of things that really rose from that space that I thought I'd want to address. First of all, a conversation I had with my mom, for example, and my sister, was should Christians under any circumstance be involved in protests against something like social injustice? And I'll share my views, and I invite you guys to comment on this video, sharing your thoughts and your opinions, because it's really just a conversation about the space. For me, as a student of history, my dad was a historian, my mom also studied history when she was in college. I personally was raised in a home where we talk about these things, and we talk about them very passionately. We tackle them. We don't avoid things like racism. We don't avoid things like social injustices. And both my parents, my dad was a pastor before he passed away. My mom is a pastor, and I'm a believer. So clearly, there's nothing wrong with believers talking about these things. But what about when it moves past conversation to perhaps going on the streets? Right now, in parts of America and around the world, in fact, people have been taken to the streets, making their voices heard either in silent protests, marches, boycotts, or they've been taking that violent action like destroying properties, breaking storefronts, putting stuff in the road, coming into confrontations with the police. And so there's a whole spectrum of activities that people have chosen to take to vent or to give ear to their frustration. Now, this is not anything new. It's not the first time in history that a group of people, be it racially connected or otherwise, a group of people have felt the need to publicly make certain statements or publicly take certain actions to address a certain issue. That's happened many times before. And it would seem that right now in America, what we're realizing is that black people, African Americans, have pretty much come to the end of the leash in terms of how much they can take in terms of the police brutality, the killings, all of that space, because there are a lot of persons that have suffered in the black community at the hands of the police. That is an objective fact. And I don't think that's something that we can really debate much about, because the stats are there, the hashtags are there, the long list of names are there. But should Christians be numbered among those who take to the streets, for example? I, for one, let me start by saying I definitely believe that it's fine for a believer to be a part of a silent protest or a march. I believe there's nothing wrong with that. It's a constitutional right. The right to assembly, the right to protest is something that constitutionally is recognized as the right of every person in a democratic society, such as America is known to be, even in Jamaica. But what about when that protest moves past you simply walking down the street, holding a placard, to a violent confrontation with the police? That's where now there's a whole tension regarding when does my behavior move from being Christian to something that doesn't glorify God. I would say definitely I don't believe it glorifies God to burn down somebody's business space because you're angry about something that's happening. And something that my mom said to me, which really challenged me, was that how would Jesus be among the violent protesters if he was here today? I had to say I honestly don't know, because Jesus is a kind of strange guy, and I feel like we kind of typically church box him a lot and paint him in a very Eurocentric set of colors. We kind of try to describe his mannerisms, behaviors, actions based on our own church culture ideals. So I don't think we really know whether Jesus would be amongst the violent protesters or not. We don't really know for sure. I've heard church folks say, well, he said turn the other cheek. Yes, he did, but he also whipped people in the marketplace. So he wasn't turning the other cheek under those circumstances. So clearly there are circumstances that Jesus felt it warranted taking violent, physical, confrontational actions. And so, what would he do if he was here? I honestly don't know. If I were a black male living in the States right now, and I was a part of a protest, a march, for example, a peaceful march, talking about these issues, making our voices heard that we are very upset about or frustrated about the race wars and the confrontations with the police and the injustices that have typified the black-white relations in America for centuries. And then we come across police who are not only trying to maintain peace, but they are taking measures that undermine our constitutional rights to peaceful assembly. I'm going to be very, very honest. I'm not so sure I would run. I'm not so sure I would throw my hands in the air and say, Lord Jesus, deliver us. I'm not going to say I'm going to throw fists and like fight the cops. I'm not going that far. But I'm not going to passively simply be like, oh Jesus, deliver us in this moment, Father. Because in my examination of history, and I invite you guys to do your own research, the Methodists, the Baptists, the Quakers, before they got very passive, these religious groups were a part of a lot of the resistance to slavery that took place both in the Caribbean and around the world. And I invite you guys to share your thoughts in the comments below. We're going to have 3 more parts of this series, and I'm sure that on the next one we can dive a little deeper into this topic. So clearly it's not a black and white conversation, pardon the play on words, but it's not cut and dry as to whether Christians can be involved in violent confrontations with the police. I know most of the church community is very clear on no, we should under no circumstances. But I find that for me personally, one of my challenges with church culture for a lot of years has been, we talk a lot about pacific means and being passive and all these things when the issues feel very far removed from us. And so I feel like, should we exist in a culture where you are driving on the road and a police pulls you over, and before even following the constitutionally set out methods of acquiring your driver's license and your registration and explaining to you why you've been stopped, they're tackling you out of your car, tackling you to the ground, punching you up. I just wonder just how long we would be able to manage those circumstances prayerfully. I just wonder. It begs the question, because sometimes as church folk we are so far removed from the realities of people that or statements of no, we just need to pray about it, or no. Just stay inside your home, stay home and post on social media about it. Those methods seem a bit passive in response to how harsh and how aggressive the real circumstances are for those who live in it on a day-to-day basis. Something that was said to me that really bothered me and made me think a lot was, the reality is George Floyd is not an exception. Besides the long list of names of persons who have suffered police brutality and have been killed at the hands of the police in the States, these are just those that were captured on camera, or those that we know about. And the truth is, there are a lot of institutionalized examples of systemic racism, and these are things that are coming to the fore a lot more now since George Floyd's murder at the hands of the cops. And so I invite you guys to comment below. I invite you guys to consider, if you lived in a society where your fundamental human rights, your constitutional rights were consistently being undermined by those who are sworn to serve and protect you, just how long do you feel like you would be able to manage under those circumstances without taking any actual confrontational methods of protesting to that? Would you be okay with that happening? And for me, I imagine driving in a car, for example, with my mom, and then a police officer is going to hit my mom or disrespect her certain ways. Yes, I know we should turn the other cheek and show respect to law enforcement and all these things, but just how long would it take us to confront some of these things? And I said in the previous episode that prayer has gotten us a lot of results, but the truth is, when we examine history, a lot of the progress that we have made, both as a race and as church, has not been wholly and solely by just staying in our church pews in the comfort of our homes and praying about it. sometimes there is confrontational action that's required. Righteousness is the only way we live. Hey fam, thanks for watching my video. Remember to like, share and subscribe. And you can follow me on Instagram at victorbrown.music.